0 to 60 can define a performance car, but it's the fastest 60 to 0 that's the aim of Tarok's brakes. From road cars to race cars, circuits, special stages, or the autostrada, nothing reduces speed like Tarok's brakes. Italy gave the world the art of Da Vinci and Michelangelo. Tarok's has given drivers the art of stopping. For more information and to acquire your own masterpiece, visit tarox.co.uk. It's me, Mark Stone, and this is the Backseat Driver Podcast. I'm here with Tim Nash, the man behind the Lombard Rally Festival series of events. Tim, welcome to the Backseat Driver Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on, Mark.
How did all this idea come about?
That's a damn good question. Well, briefly to explain, my family were involved in motorsport right from me literally as a toddler. My elder brother was winning rallies when I was 3 and 4 years old. And one of my first memories is of being told on a Sunday morning, go downstairs very quietly because there's rally drivers asleep in the sitting room. And I'd come down and I'd find the late Henry Liddon asleep in a chair with his legs dangling over the side, and various other people who were well known in the 60s and 70s. They're fast asleep, having done a night event the previous day or previous evening. So I sort of grew up with it in my blood. I rallied in the 70s and 80s myself, and
because you were heavily, well, you still are, because you still drive on, heavily connected with Mazda.
Yes, I was. I'm very glad to say supported by Mazda Car Imports UK Limited, as they were called in those days, and it was a great time to be involved in motorsport and rallying, which in those days was a very, very much bigger sport in the UK than it is today, sadly. So that was that, and I kept involved, kept in touch with friends that I'd known, and so on. And about 10 years ago now, I started organising dinners for old fogies like me. And that's being polite. And we'd swap stories and we'd tell outrageous things about, as somebody once said to us, the older you get, the faster you were. And that's undoubtedly true. And I kept sort of hearing stories about what were called legends events out in Europe, mainland Europe, that allowed people to drive cars that weren't allowed to be rallied competitively in the UK. Often not timed, but just run like a rally, but untimed. And I kept sort of making inquiries and trying to figure out why it didn't happen in the UK. And eventually I thought, well, let's have a go. Let's try and put one on. And it took me over a year to try and get things pulled together, which was back in the sort of late 2016, early 2017. Announced it at the end of 2017, saying that we would recreate part of the day of the 1976 RAC rally, which was based in Bath, and we would go to some of the places that were what we called the spectator stages in those days, which were still available. So we did that, got it all put together, got a route done, which very much resembled the 1970s rally. And I went along to the Bath Spa Hotel because I thought it would be nice to base the whole thing back in Bath as it had been that year, and booked a room for a dinner as part of it because I wanted it to be mainly a social event, if I'm honest. And away we went. And I thought, we'll get 20 or 30 cars come along to this, which will be probably mainly people I know, and that'll be a bit of fun, and, that'll be that. And I rang 2 or 3 of my old friends saying, if we can find you a car, will you come and drive? So, sort of hero drivers and people that I knew vaguely. And we were lucky enough to get Stig Blomqvist, and we had Jimmy McRae, Di Llewellyn, all coming along to the event, Robin Eyre Maunsell. So I thought, that would be a good base. It would make people interested in it. And I thought that frankly, as I say, 20 or 30 cars, and we get extra people who come to the dinner. 3 months later, I had to go back to the hotel and say, have you got a bigger room? Because in no time at all, we had over 100 entries, and we ended up, in fact, running, I think it was 123 or 124 in October 2018 when it ran. And I just couldn't get over the interest in the thing. And the thing that I really couldn't understand and didn't expect in any way was the spectator interest. People who'd been rallying at the time I did, they said, do you know, we went up to a junction on the road route and there were people waving us through, just like it was in the old days. And there were literally people standing at the side of main roads waiting for the cars to come. Now, yeah, I know a lot of that was the fact that we had Stig and we had Jimmy and people like that there. That, I'm sure, was a lot of the attraction. But it just showed the interest that there was in these cars. We ran, as part of the road section, we ran the cars up the Cheddar Gorge, which anybody who lives in Somerset knows it's quite steep, quite narrow. We thought it would be a bit of fun because back in the 70s and 80s and 60s as well, it was very much used as a timed selective on road rallies. It's about, I don't know, a mile and a half long, and it was covered with people each side of the road waving to the drivers. And I thought, I think we might have done something here. 8 o'clock in the morning, starting the event in the centre of Bath, it was reckoned that there were 3,000 people just stood at the side of the road watching the cars starting. So we kind of worked from there, and it's all really become it's just expanded from that. Going back to the old days in the 70s, 80s, 90s, of course, it was the Lombard RAC rally that went all around the UK. So I thought the thing to do was to try and bring the ambience of it, the story of what had gone on those years ago, to different parts of the country, to the sort of places that were used, not in the forests, the sort of places that were the stately homes, the race courses, the places that were used as spectator spots.
Because, I mean, these used to be like the Sunday stages, didn't they? Like the start, and it was where everybody used to go, so they could thousands could stand and watch it. Not in some dingy forest at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. I mean, I mentioned the 76 RAC. The 76 Lombard RAC was the last one that had an ordinary first day straight out into the forests. And as an entrant that year, I can tell you it was horrendous because there were so many people around the Forest of Dean, where the first stages were, that it was actually at times quite frightening driving through the crowds of people in the forests. And rightly enough, particularly as there was an accident, sadly, where a car went into the spectators at Speech House, the organisers realised that they couldn't do that again. It had to have some form of a first day wandering around stately homes, which I've got to say, as an entrant, was pretty awful. People used to say, you can't win the RAC on the first day, but you can damn well lose it. And it was true enough, because a lot of these stages were... one particular one springs to mind, Sutton Park in Birmingham. Now, Sutton Park is a huge park, and it has an enormous amount of roads in it, but the rest of the year nobody ever drove on them. So, the one event of the year, it was so treacherous, particularly if it had been raining. I mean, it was like driving on sheet ice, and with all of these people watching you. So, you inevitably you thought, well, I want to put on a little bit of a show, but you also didn't want to go off.
I think the most famous one is Tony Pons and the Rover SD1.
Well, yeah. I mean, Tony actually had a couple of times when he managed to do that. I mean, he parked his TR7 V8 underneath a lion feeding point at Longleat. He also managed to, as you say, have an accident in an SD1. Hannu Mikkola went off in Knowlesley Safari Park a couple of years later in his Quattro. They were very, very, very slippery, and they were not a lot of fun, if I'm honest, to drive. But we all understood the reasoning with the spectators.
Well, it's one of those things, without the spectators,
etc., rallying and the drivers aren't really anywhere, are they? Nobody's heard of them.
Well, back in those days, no, because you're quite right. I mean, you wanted to get some sponsorship. How could you ask for somebody to sponsor you on an event if there were no spectators? If you could go to somebody and say, oh, look at this. Somebody has done a survey and more people came out to watch the Lombard RAC Rally last weekend than went to every football match in the whole country at any time through the year. Now, which do you want to sponsor? And for those of us who remember him and knew him well, Roger Clark and his Cossack adverts.
Meant gentleman's hairspray.
Exactly. That was a huge thing for rallying in this country. And I would hope that by running these events around the UK, we can bring people in to see rally cars that they won't have seen. Who has seen a Mini or a Hillman Imp or something like that on a rally stage in the last few years? Yes, you can see it if you still want to go to some obscure forest, because rallying sadly doesn't bring the spectator numbers anymore. But you can come to an event like this and you can see some Minis, and you can see some Cortinas, you can see some Imps, and you can see cars that can't be rallied competitively anymore, like an Audi Quattro or a Lancia Stratos, which do not appear on mainstream rallies anymore because most of them, frankly, are not able to be. You can't see, a Group B Delta S4. Not that we've ever managed to get one to an event yet, although we do have a promise for one for an event next year. Nobody has seen these cars rally competitively in the UK for 20 or 30 years, and they're not going to. But hopefully we can bring some of those cars out onto these non-competitive stages for people to see them in some form, rather than them sitting just in museums, even if maybe they aren't the original cars, but they look and perform exactly as the original car did.
Well, I mean, like today, we've been fortunate in having one of Renault Altonen's genuine 1960s Austin Healey 3000 Works rally cars that you see them so rarely. And I mean, I was fortunate enough to do a lap of the stage in the co-driver's seat. They are just tremendous, but that's from the era when rally drivers were rally drivers. I mean, they drove for 5 solid days and got an hour off halfway. To have driven a car like that for that length of time must have been absolutely unbelievable.
Yes, I mean, we talk about that sort of rallying from the 1960s, which of course was just another world to all of us today. I as I said, my brother was a rally driver in the 60s. And he took part in events like the Spa Sofia Liège, which, as you say, was days on end with a matter of minutes only. Even the Monte Carlo rally in those days, you drove, let's say you had various parts of Europe you could start at. You drove from, let's say, Glasgow, the whole length of the UK, you got onto a ferry at Dover. Your only time before you arrived in Monte Carlo to have a rest was on that ferry. The rest of the time you were driving, my brother came very close to winning a Monte Carlo rally in a Triumph Herald. Now, you laugh about that, and they had a very good result in a Standard 10. But, okay, that was the car of the period. But you imagine driving today, in today's roads, let alone the roads then, without autoroutes and so on, that sort of distance, without a break.
At speed as well, because they were told you have X amount of time to get there.
Exactly. There were events that were just horrendously long, effectively road races. I'm glad to say that by the time I was rallying in the 70s, they had died out because let's be honest, they were utterly ridiculously dangerous. By the mid-70s, you couldn't do it anymore. And so the marathon rally was produced, which, my brother finished second, and the first one from London to Sydney. I mean, the idea of driving in a car today, or today, let alone then, from London to through Central Europe, Turkey, Afghanistan, down through India to Bombay, without any stops. Then you got on a boat and then you drove the full width of Australia. Again, no stops. It's ludicrous. And 2 years later, they did the same thing again, except this time they drove from London all the way through Europe. Then they got on a boat which took them to South America, and they drove the whole length of South America in rally cars, again with no stops. They talked of 30-hour special stages. I used to think that it was hard work if I did a 30-mile one, not 30 hours. In a Austin 1800 or a Triumph PI or a Hillman Hunter. I mean, it is just unbelievable to think back to those events. But those we obviously can't recreate. But we can recreate something in the fashion that we're trying to do by bringing these Lombard festivals to different parts of the country, plus still running Lombard Rally Bath as a multi-venue event with road sections as well. But they can never be anything like the length and obviously nor can they be any way competitive, and nor would we want them to be today, because you can't do it. It's not safe.
And for 2023, the number of events are expanding a little bit, aren't they?
Yes, we're taking them even further around the country. We're starting in 2023 early in the year in January in Uttoxeter Racecourse, where we will have the first of these. We will then be moving around the country. We will have an event in Surrey for the first time at Lingfield Park. We will be hopefully back here at Duncombe Park during the year. And we have other old venues that were used in periods such as the Albemarle Airfield at the edge of Newcastle upon Tyne. We shall be going there, and other ones. So in all, we will be having 6 of the one-day events plus Lombard Rally Bath.
Tim Nash, thank you very much for joining me on the Backseat Driver podcast, and thank you very much for recreating the days of proper rallying.
Well, I'm trying. I won't say it's proper rallying, but it's something like it. Thank you very much for having me on, Mark.
I'm here at Duncombe Park for the Lombard Rally Festival, and I am joined by Shekha Metha and Yvonne Mehta, wife and son of, I think it's safe to say, Africa's most successful rally driver, Shekha Metha. Jay and Yvonne, welcome to the Backseat Driver podcast.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
Now, I'll start with Yvonne. This has to bring back memories for you, because you did quite a lot with Shekha, didn't you?
Yes, we did 17 years together in the WRC and other international events, yeah.
And the thing about the African rallies, fortunately he lived there, he became in many ways the master of them, didn't he?
He did. He won the Safari, first of all in 1973 in a 240Z, and then in 78, so 79, 80, 81, 82, he won 4 on the trot, yeah.
So, and you did a lot of co-driving with him, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I was the cheap co-driver. And also...
He didn't have to pay you because you were the missus.
That's right. And also when we broke down, we had something to do at least.
The African rallies, you watch them on YouTube and things like that. They were serious events, weren't they?
They really were. The Easter ones, they'd start Thursday afternoon from Nairobi, and you'd get back Monday morning. Yeah, depending where you were in the running order, you might have had 8 hours sleep, or you might have had half an hour.
Yeah. And what was the service like? Because the stages were proper stages, weren't they?
Yes. They weren't stages in those. It was a stage from start to finish.
Yeah.
All the sections, road sections and everything were impossible times. So you had to go absolutely flat out from the start. But you had to do it with your head and not your foot, and that's where Shekhar won, because he was never in the fastest vehicle. But everybody from Audi to Lancia, everybody used to think, right, maximum power and we'll win. And that was never the case, because the roads are so rough and you have to drive with your head and not your foot. And he was a very clever fellow, very clever.
Because the other thing I noticed when you watched the footage of it, all the locals came out. I mean, it was a party for a lot of them, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It and to a certain extent still is. It's a national institution of an event, because it's the people out in the villages and in the bush. They don't have television, or they didn't have. I think each village now has one, but they didn't have television. They had little transistor radios.
Yeah.
And even today, a girl at the airport the other day said to me, I remember being hauled out of my bed, and she lived in a little African village, to watch the cars and drivers in the middle of the night. And so many people have told me that, and they loved it. And they still do, because it's the sport that goes to the people. They can see it on their own doorstep without paying a penny.
Yeah, they just walk outside and there it is, one of the world's biggest events.
But they're very knowledgeable as well. Well, they were. They knew the drivers. They love cars anyway. But they all knew all the drivers, and there was betting shops everywhere. Oh yes, I made a fortune. And then one of the headlines in the Daily Nation one year was, "Please Mehta, don't win again," from the bookies.
Now, Jay, what's it like following in your father's footsteps?
Well, I've made a conceited effort not to. Purely a hobby for me. I think that rallying very much changed. The days of Group B and the Safari are a bit of a time capsule. They were a glorious event, but they're never going to be recreated as it was then. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I certainly think it was a flash in time. I think kind of growing up with it is one of these things where you're somewhat sort of desensitised to it in a way. You're constantly at rallies and Formula 1 and stuff. You go, that's just a normal thing to do. That's.
So in many ways, where's Mum and Dad? Well, they're doing the Safari Rally. All right.
Yeah, it's fine. It's and growing up, early memories of being sat in cars and thrown around various places by. People and just thinking, this is fine. As my dad said, he said, any idiot can drive fast, but it takes someone with skill to drive fast safely, and I think that's an important thing to bear in mind, as I've proved today by throwing myself around into various trees. And I think for me, rallying was always a sport that I think we touched on earlier, that kind of came to the people, and it's quite nice to be able to do it here, for example, in this lovely surroundings, come and see people, chat, park the car up, and people who weren't even necessarily into rallying but heard it was on or in the area, come and talk to you, and that's quite special. And I think that it's different sport in that aspect from football or anything else where you have to go to the stadium, and it's nice to have a bit of that spirit going.
Now, you're saying for you rallying's a hobby. Where do you do your rallying?
That's a good point. Mainly here at the minute. We've been in my head. I've had 2 kids in the last few years, so that's been somewhat of my main effort so far. But the last event I actually did was the Bath Rally, which is of course another sister event of this one. Since then, actually, this Mini I've come in today, it's pretty much been sat in a garage whilst life has carried on around it.
So COVID there as well.
Yes, it was COVID and family commitments, but it's done well. It's came out here and got thrashed around, so it's woken up 0 to 60 time is quite good. Although. I did park it up earlier, and the thing is with the engine bay, people come and talk to you and say, oh, it's lovely, and want to talk about things. I just look at all the things I have to do to it, Some kind of a mechanical masochist by having a Mini, and my towing vehicle is a VW bus, one of the 70s buses, which aren't renowned for reliability either, so, it gets me out of the house, I suppose.
Are you ever fortunate enough to rally any of your father's old cars, or any cars like your father drove?
Unfortunately not. I mainly rally minis, and the reason being that I live in London and parking's at a premium. I have 1 parking space and I can fit 2 minis in it, so there you go. That's
all Shekhars winning cars from Nissan anyway are in Japan. That's the 5 of them. And it never occurred to us in those days anyway to keep any of the cars. Not that we could, because they all came into Kenya on a carne de passage, and they had to go out, in theory. I think there was some sort of little shenanigans going on, but no, we haven't got any of them.
Yeah.
No.
Although I think the last 240Z I was in was Tony Falls.
That wasn't an original.
No, it wasn't original. No, so.
He bought it in America. He bought it in America and had it converted from left-hand drive to right. Yeah. But it was a very nicely done one.
Yes. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah.
If you got the chance, would you drive one?
Absolutely. I mean, why not? At the end of the day, I'm not going to turn a drive down no matter what vehicle you really throw at me. So, with the 240Zs, they were a bit unwieldy, but I think Dad likened them to sort of sailing a boat. You had this sort of long bonnet in front of you that kind of just bobbed around doing its own thing.
Those long straights in Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda, you could watch the bonnet doing this. And he was fighting it. You never knew where it was going to go.
Yeah.
A bit like a bit of a wild horse, wasn't it? It kind of does what it wants. It's a bit of a meeting of the minds.
It's another animal, actually.
Oh, I can imagine he did. Well, he was sponsored by Camel, so there was.
So, do you do much competition in England, or is this, shall we say, a bit unusual for you?
No, I did. Was it Telford last year? Somewhere, Wrexham or Western Park, but that wasn't competitive. I do it with a New Zealand guy, a Kiwi, who was a circuit racer.
Yeah.
But we converted him to rallying. And he's very good, but he's been sick for the year, so we haven't done very much at all. We were going to do Eiffel, which I went to anyway, Rally Legends, Knockhill.
Oh, yes,
Knockhill.
in Scotland.
Yes. Well, we didn't know it was in
You're getting
Scotland.
back into wild country up there, you know.
I didn't know it was in Scotland, and nor did he. So he rang me up and said, do you fancy going up to going to a circuit called Knockhill for the McRae stages? Now, of course, I know Jimmy and the whole family really well, and I should have known where it was. And both he and I thought it was in Kent.
That's Brands Hatch.
No, there's another one.
There's Liddon. That's down there.
Liddon Hill, is it? Okay, that's what we thought it was.
Wrong end of the country. In fact, different country.
And it was up in Scotland. But I had a nice time anyway, so that was lovely.
You trust your navigator, don't you, on these things? So you always trust your navigator on these
the
things.
world's best navigator. I didn't know Knockhill was in Scotland. Well, why should I?
I think we mainly do it. This is a sort of mother-son bonding experience. You sit in a car with each other and swear like Emilio. And with my little one, I've got a little 3-year-old girl, and she's very much into it already. Indoctrinate them very early. That's the key to it all.
She's obsessed with cars. Absolutely obsessed, isn't she?
I mean, specifically this one, funnily enough. I mean, this kind of came around by accident, but Corgi made a miniature of this, as they do with some special cars. And I had one, and I was at a school event, and I ran it over with the car. So it effectively committed infanticide. I then bought another one of the little models to kind of go along with it. And then my daughter got a hand on it, and that's her favourite toy. Everything she picks is this sort of light green.
Lime green.
Yeah, so, it's we're sort of celebrating Mum's birthday here, and I said, well, I very much hope that in many years to come I can do the same thing with my kids. So certainly a family tradition, if anything.
So, rallying-wise, what comes next for you, Jay?
Well, I think the first thing to do would be put the brakes in this car. As I told you when we first came in, the pedal goes straight to the floor. It doesn't really do anything, but, brakes just slow you down, so they're not necessary.
Enzo Ferrari said racing drivers and rally drivers didn't need brakes. What do you need brakes for?
No, I like to play pinball with the berms here. That's much better.
I know when Shekhar used to say to me, I remember in Greece on the Acropolis rally, he said, I've got no brakes. I said, what do you want me to do about it? and when his intercom stopped working from him to me, I didn't replay it. He needs to listen to me. I don't need to listen to him.
We, in fact, at the start of this stage, I said, Mum, I don't actually have any brakes here. And, we decided that the handbrake was good enough. And if that fails, we can just open the doors and try and get the wind resistance up. So,
well, there's only 2 soft surfaces round here.
Yeah. Learn to jump and roll. That's the main thing.
So, for Yvonne Mehta, what comes next?
Oh, well, on Friday I go to the States, and then 2 weeks later go back to Kenya. On the rallying side, I haven't got anything planned, but something will turn up.
Somebody will make you an offer you can't refuse.
Yes, and I never get paid, but it doesn't matter. I mean, once a hooligan, always a hooligan.
Well, let me asking, how did you get into it?
Now then, I'd left the Air Force and I wanted a job overseas, so I got a contract in Aden. But I had to learn to drive because everybody, there were no public transport. So a friend of mine said he would teach me to drive. So he did, passed the test, and then he said, there's a little club event in Hounslow or wherever it was. Let's do that this weekend. So I said, okay. He said, but you drive, I'll navigate. I said, okay. So we did that and we won. And he said, you'll never be any good because you're too fast. So then I got the job in Aden and off I went. And they used to have motor sprints on the salt pans. And then from there I got a job into Uganda, which of course was safari country. And I met Shekhar there, who was just starting. He was doing sprints. And his first love was circuit racing. We had 2 very good circuits. But then he again got converted to rallying, so that's how that started. So we grew up with it together, really.
Yeah. So, and of all the cars that you competed in, which was the favourite?
Okay, I never know one car from another.
Honestly, she has no idea. You say, do you remember doing the rally in this? No. But if you show a picture...
Things on Facebook and I haven't a clue. I remember doing it.
If you show a picture of the inside, then she knows what.
Well, that's the office, isn't it?
As long as I've got a driver who's got a steering wheel, and I've got a wheel on each corner.
Brakes are immaterial.
It doesn't matter about them. And I've got my pace notes and my maps. I'm happy.
Yes.
So, yeah. But I have to say there were 2 outs. Oh, yeah. 2. That's why I don't wear a full face helmet, because I can't put my lipstick on. There were 2 outstanding moments. One was the Audi drive in Argentina. The team manager came to me, not to Sheikh, at the end of the Acropolis and said, would you do us a favour and be the 4th car in the team in Argentina next month? Well, I didn't have to think twice and I didn't have to go and ask Shekhar. I mean, it was just a yes. And it was a practice car, but it was fabulous. After a Datsun, 240, 240 RS, I mean... Yeah.
By the way, then the manufacturers don't get upset. All rally cars are noticeably uncomfortable inside.
Yes, they are, but some are more comfortable than others, I have to say. But that was an outstanding moment to drive that car at that speed. It was absolutely... And it was in Bariloche, which was Little Switzerland, so it was on snow and ice. So that was interesting. And then the other one was Pikes Peak in a Peugeot.
Right.
Jean Top was the team manager then, and he produced this basically Formula 1 car in a bit of plastic. It was a 500 horsepower, brake horsepower then, 84, 80, yeah, must have been about 84. Ari was one of our teammates, and that was the most magical feeling to go up there. The Americans, of course, couldn't understand why a man would want to take his wife, but there we are. And he said, there's 126 bends. I need her there. And that was a fabulous trip. Scary as hell, but lovely, lovely.
Jay and Yvonne Mehta, thank you very much for joining me on the Backseat Podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
And you. Thank you very much.
I know you just said it's a hobby, but for a lot of true rally enthusiasts, Yvonne Mehta, like your late great husband, rallying royalty. Thanks very much again.
You're very, very welcome.
Thank you so much, Alex. Cheers.
Rally Rarely beaten on price, never beaten on service. Whether it's cars, bikes or commercials, Hoddy Tyres are the best in the business. And when it comes to tyre expertise and advice to supplying the correct tyres for your vehicle's specific requirements, nobody comes close to David Lakin and the Hoddy Tyres team. So give them a call on 01200 613 192 or visit the website at hoddytyres.co.uk.